I never imagined that the night my marriage ended would also be the night my entire past began to unravel. It started with an argument, loud, messy, and cruel. My husband, Daniel, had been distant for months, always leaving early, coming home late, and offering excuses that didn't fit together. But that night, for the first time, he didn't bother to pretend. He told me I was dead weight. He told me I brought nothing to this marriage. And then he told me to get out. I stood there in the doorway, holding nothing but a half-zipped suitcase and the last bit of dignity I had left. It was raining, the kind of cold rain that made you feel like the entire sky was disappointed in you. I didn't have my wallet. Daniel had locked the drawer where we kept important things. I didn't have money, a card, or even a ride. All I had was the tiny, hidden compartment of my suitcase, where I kept something I hadn't touched in years. My father's old bank card. He had given it to me before he passed away, telling me to use it only if I was ever in real trouble. At the time, I thought he meant emotional or physical trouble, not homeless in the rain because your husband kicked you out trouble. I hesitated for a moment, running my thumb over the faded numbers. Would it even work? He'd been gone for nearly 7 years. Surely the account had been closed. But at that moment, I had nothing else. No home. No money. No one I trusted. Shivering, I dragged my suitcase through the rain to the nearest 24-hour bank branch. It glowed faintly in the darkness like a sanctuary, or a warning. Inside, the security guard nodded at me with pity. My wet hair, my swollen eyes, my shaking hands made me look like someone whose life had just split in two. I walked to the ATM and slid the card in. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen lit up. "Welcome, Mr. Harrison." My father's name. I exhaled, partly from relief and partly from the shock that the card even worked. I tapped balance inquiry, expecting to see 0 or an error message. What I saw instead made my breath catch. The number on the screen had so many digits I almost thought it was a glitch. And then, before I could even process it, the ATM beeped loudly, almost like an alarm. The screen flashed red. "Please wait. Account under review." The machine froze. The lights above me flickered. And the security guard straightened, suddenly alert. My heart pounded. What was happening? Why would an old account of a dead man still exist, with that much money? And why would using it trigger a warning? Before I could step away from the machine, 2 bank employees rushed out from the back room, whispering urgently as they approached me. "Ma'am," one of them said, "we need you to come with us. Immediately." And in that moment, standing in my rain-soaked clothes, holding the card my father told me never to use lightly, I realized something terrifying. Whatever secret my father left behind, the bank knew about it. And they were not going to let me walk away easily. The 2 bank employees didn't give me time to think. One of them, a tall man with a stiff expression, stood behind me as if he feared I might run, while the other, a woman with sharp eyes, motioned for me to follow her down a narrow hallway. Everything about their behavior felt wrong. Alarmed. Urgent. Controlled. I clutched my father's old card in my hand as I walked, the plastic warm from my nervous grip. My mind raced. Why had the ATM frozen? Why did they react as if I had triggered some kind of emergency alert? My father was a quiet, private man. He worked, he came home, he fixed things around the house, and he never hinted at secrets of any kind. So why did the bank act like I had just detonated a bomb? The woman led me to a door at the end of the hallway. It wasn't marked with any sign. No employees only. No manager's office. Nothing. She unlocked it with a keypad code so long that it looked like something only high-level staff should know. The door opened with a heavy metallic click. Inside was a small office with a round table and 2 chairs. But the atmosphere felt nothing like a normal bank office. The lights were too bright, the walls too bare, and the air too cold. The man gestured for me to sit. He didn't introduce himself. "Ma'am," he said, "for security reasons we need to ask you a few questions." Security reasons? From using an old card? "I just needed to withdraw some money," I said shakily. I didn't expect any problem." The woman studied me closely, her gaze sharp enough to cut through skin. "Where did you get this card?" "My father gave it to me," I answered. "Before he died." The room changed instantly. The air thickened. The man and woman exchanged a look that made my stomach twist. "When did he pass?" the man asked. 7 years ago." Another loaded silence. Another exchanged look. Something wasn't adding up and they knew it. Ma'am. The woman leaned forward, folding her hands. Are you absolutely certain your father is deceased? I froze. What kind of question is that? I snapped. Of course he's dead. I was at his funeral. What are you trying to say? But the way both of them avoided my eyes told me they weren't trying to confuse me. They were trying to confirm something they already suspected, or something they already knew. The man cleared his throat. This account has recently shown signs of activity. My heart dropped. What activity? The woman replied, large transfers, scheduled deposits, high-level transactions. As recently as last month. That's impossible, I whispered. My father died years ago. The account should have been closed. Her voice softened slightly, but the tension didn't fade. Ma'am, accounts of this type are never closed. What type? I pressed. Neither of them answered. Instead, the man handed me a single sheet of paper with a printed statement, most of it redacted in thick black lines. But the numbers weren't hidden. My father's account was not just full, it was growing, every single month. And here's the issue, the man said quietly. This account is flagged under a high-security protocol. Anyone using it triggers an alert. We must report activity immediately. My hands shook. Report to who? The woman lowered her voice. To the agency responsible for the funds. They do not tolerate unauthorized access. Funds? Agency? Protocols? What had my father been involved in? I don't understand, I whispered. He was a mechanic. He fixed cars. He lived a normal life. The man looked at me with an expression that was half pity, half caution. Ma'am, nothing about this account is normal. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. So what happens now? Am I in trouble? The woman hesitated, just long enough for fear to creep down my spine. That depends, she said, on why you use this card and what you know about your father. I felt my heartbeat pulsing in my ears. I know everything, I insisted. He was my dad. The man leaned forward. Then tell us, why would a man who lived a normal life keep an account protected at a federal level? My breath hitched. Federal. Wait, I said, my voice cracking. Are you saying my father was involved with? Before I could finish, the hallway outside echoed with hurried footsteps. Someone was approaching fast. The woman's head snapped toward the door, her expression instantly tense. The doorknob turned, and just as it opened, the man whispered, Ma'am, whatever your father told you about that card, you should have never used it. The door swung wide, and the person who stepped inside made my blood run cold. The door opened and a tall man in a dark gray coat stepped inside, silent, confident, and out of place in a small late-night bank branch. His presence filled the room instantly, pressing down on the air like a weight. The bank employees straightened so quickly it was as if a superior officer had walked in. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them even nodded. They feared him. He closed the door behind him with a quiet click, then turned his eyes on me, sharp, assessing, and unsettlingly familiar. Not in a family resemblance way, but in a way that made me feel like he already knew everything about me. Miss Harrison, he said calmly, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Who are you? He reached into his coat slowly, so I could see he wasn't pulling out a weapon, and took out an ID badge. The emblem on it made both employees lower their eyes immediately. It wasn't police. Not military. Not anything I recognized. Just 3 letters. 3 letters that made my breath stop. I'm with a federal agency that worked closely with your father. The man in the coat sat in the chair across from me as if this were a scheduled meeting, not an emergency interrogation. He placed my father's old bank card on the table between us. You shouldn't have used this card, he said quietly. Not unless you were ready for the consequences. I didn't have a choice, I whispered. My husband threw me out. I didn't have money or anything. This was all I had. His expression didn't soften, but something in his posture shifted, just slightly, as if he understood desperation more than he wanted to admit. I get that, he said. But this card doesn't belong to you. It doesn't even belong to your father. I blinked. What? This account belongs to the government. Your father was granted access to it during his service. It was never meant for personal use. My father. I shook my head. No, you're mistaken. He was a mechanic. He fixed transmissions and rebuilt engines. He didn't work for the government. The man leaned back, studying me with unsettling patience. Is that what he told you? The room suddenly felt colder. Look, I said, my voice cracking. I don't know what you think he was, but he was just a normal man. He raised me alone. He worked long hours. He was undercover, the man interrupted. For nearly 20 years. Everything inside me went still. No, I whispered. That's not possible. I lived with him. I saw him every day. That was the point. The man pressed his fingertips together. Your father was tasked with maintaining a normal, believable life. His cover was considered one of the most successful in the program. My head spun. The words felt surreal, like they were being spoken about someone else's family, someone else's father. I tried to breathe, wanted to stand up, wanted to run, but my body wouldn't move. What was he undercover for? I demanded. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slid a folder toward me. It was thick, sealed with a black band, and marked with a warning label I didn't understand. Your father's assignments were classified, he said. But after his disappearance, I froze. Disappearance? You mean death? The man's gaze sharpened. We never confirmed his death. For a moment, everything inside me felt like it snapped, like my brain couldn't hold the weight of the words. You're lying, I whispered. He died. I saw the casket. It was a closed casket, wasn't it? He asked softly. My blood ran cold. Yes, it had been closed. Because the accident had been too severe, they said. The man continued. We believe your father faked his death to protect you. He was about to be exposed. His enemies were closing in. I shook my head again and again, but the tears gathering in my eyes betrayed me. The man didn't flinch. Because staying alive required cutting all ties. I swallowed hard. And the account? Why is it still active? Because your father is still receiving his monthly operation stipend, the man said quietly. Someone somewhere is using that money. The room felt like it was collapsing around me. What does that mean? I whispered. He leaned in, lowering his voice even more. It means your father might be alive. My breath hitched. My vision blurred. And now, he added, the moment you access that card, he'll know exactly where to find you. My pulse thundered. Why? I whispered. The man stood slowly, buttoning his coat. Because no one else has ever used that card. Not once. Not in 7 years. He stepped toward the door, then looked back at me with a warning in his eyes. And if your father isn't the one withdrawing the funds, someone who wants him dead now knows you're connected to him. The lights flickered overhead. Somewhere in the bank, a phone began ringing urgently. The man opened the door. Miss Harrison, he said, you need to come with me. Right now. Because outside the bank, someone was already looking for me. The agent didn't wait for me to stand. He simply said, now, with such urgency that my legs moved before my mind caught up. The 2 bank employees hovered near the walls, tense and pale, as if they wanted nothing more than to pretend they hadn't witnessed any of this. The agent opened the hallway door and motioned for me to follow. The bank felt different now, too quiet, too still. Every light seemed harsher, every shadow darker. I clutched my suitcase and walked close behind him, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. When we reached the lobby, he suddenly stopped and raised a hand. Don't move. I froze. A violent bang erupted above us. The maintenance door I just shut rattled against its frame as someone slammed into it. My breath caught. They found us, I whispered. No, the agent said. They found the hallway. He threw the hatch open. Then he stopped. We both stopped. Because inside the tunnel, kneeling in the dim glow of a single flickering bulb, was a man. A man whose face I recognized instantly. A face I had mourned. A face I had buried. Wet hair. Hollow eyes. A trembling smile that didn't seem real. Dad. I breathed. He lifted a hand toward me. Sweetheart, he whispered. We don't have much time. For a moment everything inside me stopped, my breath, my heartbeat, even the ability to think. My father, my dead father, was kneeling in the service tunnel as if he'd been waiting for me. His hair was longer, streaked with gray, and his face was thinner, marked by years I hadn't witnessed. But the way he looked at me, that hadn't changed. It was the same mix of worry, love, and fierce protectiveness he used to have whenever I scraped my knee or cried after a bad dream. "Dad," I whispered again, terrified that if I blinked he'd vanish like a hallucination. He stood slowly, his movements stiff, as if his body had been pushed beyond its limits one too many times. "Come here," he murmured. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to see any of this." But before I could take a step toward him, the agent grabbed my arm and yanked me back. "Don't," he snapped. "You don't know if that's really him." My father's face tightened. "Let her go. Now." The two men stared at each other, one filled with cold authority, the other with a desperate calm. It was like watching two opposing storms collide. "Confirm identity," the agent demanded. My father raised both hands slightly. "Ident marker 14 beta." The agent stiffened. His hand moved to the inside of his coat, but not for a weapon. For a scanner. He pointed the small device at my father. It glowed briefly, beeped, and then flashed green. "Identity confirmed," the agent muttered. "You're alive." "Barely," my father sighed. "And I'd like to stay that way for at least a few more minutes." The agent didn't lower his guard. "If they followed you." "They didn't," my father cut in. "They followed her. And they're right behind you." A deafening crash erupted upstairs. The maintenance door shook violently. My father motioned toward the tunnel. "We have to go. Now. Both of you." The agent hesitated. "This wasn't the extraction point." "There is no extraction anymore," my father snapped. "They've already compromised the bank, the street, and your team is probably—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "We don't have time." I stood frozen between them, the world spinning out of control. "Dad?" I choked out, tears burning behind my eyes. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you leave me alone? Why?" He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Because if they couldn't find me, they would go after the only person I ever loved." My heart cracked open. "But they found me anyway," I whispered. He nodded, guilt weighing him down like lead. "Because you used the card." He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "You triggered the beacon. And every operative tied to my old life felt it. Including the ones who want me dead." The agent swore quietly under his breath. Another crash. Then a metallic screech, the sound of the maintenance door's hinges starting to bend. "They're cutting through," the agent said. "We have about 30 seconds. My father reached out his hand. "Sweetheart. Come with me." Behind him, the tunnel stretched into darkness. I could hear faint echoes, water dripping, distant machinery, the hum of underground cables. It felt endless, unknown, terrifying. But the danger behind us was worse. I grabbed my suitcase and stepped toward him. The agent blocked my path. "We don't know where he's taking you," my father snapped. "Anywhere is better than where they will take her." "Tell me who they are," I begged. "I deserve to know." My father hesitated only a second. "People I once worked with, people who don't like that. I left my assignment unfinished." "What assignment?" He looked at me with eyes full of an apology I could feel in my chest. "You." A chill shot through me. "What does that mean?" The agent glanced sharply at him. "You told us your daughter was never connected." "She wasn't," my father said. "Not directly. But she was used as leverage. Insurance. A pressure point." His voice lowered. "And once I disappeared, they didn't need leverage. They needed revenge." The maintenance door upstairs burst open with a metallic shriek. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. "Time's up," the agent hissed. My father grabbed my arm. "Move." The agent rushed behind us as we dove into the tunnel. My father slammed the hatch shut and locked it from the inside. The moment the metal clanged into place, fists began pounding on the other side. Then voices. Muffled. Urgent. Too close. My father pulled me through the tunnel, guiding me through the dark. "Stay low. Stay quiet." The agent followed behind us, one hand gripping a small device, scanning our trail. As we ran, the tunnel tilted downward, deeper under the city. The air grew colder, damper. Distant vibrations shook the walls, maybe trains, maybe something else. Finally, the agent whispered, "Where are we going?" My father pointed ahead. "Safe House 9. Last one still operational." "And what then?" I panted. My father slowed just enough to look at me. "Then," he said, "you're going to learn the truth about who you are. And why I spent 20 years protecting you." The footsteps were close now. Close enough that I could hear the enemies breathing. Close enough that I could feel the vibration of their boots through the ground. "Again!" my father yelled. They hit the door together, and with a screech it broke inward. "Go!" my father shouted, pushing me through the opening. I stumbled into a small concrete room with low ceilings and exposed pipes. The agent followed, then my father. He slammed the door shut and locked it manually with a thick steel bar. Heavy thuds hit the other side immediately. My pulse thundered. My whole body shook. "Where are we?" I whispered. My father reached up and pulled a hanging chain. A dim emergency light flickered on, revealing the room more clearly. It wasn't just any room. It was a safe house. A real, fully stocked, militarized safe house, hidden beneath the city in a place no one should have known existed. Fold-out cots, supply crates, canned food, old maps, surveillance screens, and most alarming, a weapons locker sealed with biometric locks. My heart hammered. "Dad, why is this here?" He looked at me, exhaustion etched deep into his features. "Because I built it," he said. "For you." My breath caught. "For me." He nodded. "In case the day came when the people I worked for, or against, came after you." The agent checked the surveillance system, static flickering on every monitor. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "What now?" I whispered. He pointed at one of the screens. Through the fuzzy interference, silhouettes moved toward the safe house entrance. Fast, coordinated, armed. "They're not trying to capture you," the agent said. "They're trying to eliminate you." I turned to my father, fear clawing up my throat. "Why?" I cried. "Why would they want me dead?" He stepped toward me, placing his shaking hands on my shoulders. "Because you're the only loose end left. Because what I stole, what I hid. It wasn't a file or money or intel." He swallowed hard. "It was you." Before I could speak, the safe house door shook violently. They had found us. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the sterile white light of the bank office, the trembling hands of the banker, the number on the screen that looked more like a government budget than a bank balance, and the way he whispered, "You shouldn't be using this card." By morning, my nerves were so raw I felt feverish, but I forced myself into clean clothes and brewed the last bit of tea I had left. I didn't know what my next step was. Go back to the bank? Call my father? Confront my husband? Do nothing and hope this would all blow over? None of those choices sounded safe. Around noon, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. The streets were busy, people moving with purpose. I felt like a ghost drifting among them. I didn't realize I had stopped at a bench until someone sat down beside me. "Rough day?" a voice asked. I turned and saw an older man in a gray coat, neat, quiet, almost invisible in the crowd. His eyes, however, were sharp, far too observant. "I'm fine," I said cautiously. He gave a small smile. "No, you're not." My stomach tightened. "Do I know you?" "Not yet." He reached into his coat pocket slowly, so I wouldn't panic, and pulled out a small envelope. "But I know your father." The world tilted. No one knew about the card. No one except my father and the bank. "I think you're confusing me with someone else," I said, standing up. He didn't stop me. He simply set the envelope on the bench between us. "Your father asked me to look after you if anything ever happened. He predicted this moment years ago." I froze. My father always had a strange way of speaking about the future, as though he knew the exact day storms would arrive. "What happened?" I whispered. The man tapped the envelope. "Inside is something he wanted you to see. Something that explains the money, the bank account, and why they reacted the way they did yesterday." My heart hammered. "Who are you?" "Someone who owes your father a life," he replied. "And someone who knows how dangerous it is for you to be using that card." "Dangerous?" My legs nearly gave out. Before I could form another question, he stood, buttoned his coat, and disappeared into the moving crowd with practiced ease. almost like he'd spent his entire life blending into shadows. I looked down at the envelope. It was thick, heavy, sealed with black wax. My father's initials were pressed into it. My hand shook as I picked it up. I didn't open it there. I ran back to the tiny apartment as fast as I could, slammed the door and locked it twice. Then I tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with my father's unmistakable handwriting. Steady, elegant, commanding. If you are reading this, then the truth has reached you sooner than I hoped. My breath caught. The money you found is not mine. It is something far more dangerous. And now that you've used it, they will come looking for you. The paper slipped from my hands. Who were they? What did my father get himself into? And how had I, without knowing, stepped right into the center of it? I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to unravel. And it wouldn't just be a family secret. It would be a threat that could tear our entire lives apart. For a long moment I just stared at the letter on the floor. My father's handwriting seeming to pulse like a heartbeat. They will come looking for you. Those words wouldn't stop echoing in my mind. I folded the letter back into the envelope, hands trembling, and forced myself to breathe. My father wasn't dramatic. If he wrote something like that, it meant danger was not a possibility. It was a promise. Just as I swung my leg over the window frame, the door across the room shook hard. He was trying to break in. My pulse exploded. I crawled onto the fire escape and pulled the window down behind me as quietly as I could. I didn't stay to see if he got inside. I ran. The metal stairs rattled dangerously, each step echoing through the alley. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. Halfway down I looked over my shoulder, and my blood went cold. He was already climbing out the window behind me. I took the stairs two at a time until I reached the alley, nearly slipping on wet concrete. I sprinted toward the main street, but before I reached it, a car door slammed somewhere behind me. They were coordinated. Not just one man. I pressed myself against a wall, breath shaking, mind racing. My father's warning wasn't paranoia. This was real. Then suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket. The vibration made me jump. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. Unknown number. I hesitated for a split second before answering. A voice, calm, low, steady, said, "If you want to survive tonight, don't go home. Don't go back to the bank. And don't trust the man following you. Go to the river bridge. Now." My entire body went numb. "Who are you?" I whispered. The voice paused. Then, "The only friend your father has left." The line went dead. I looked back toward the alley entrance. The man in the black cap had stepped into view, scanning the street. I had no choice. I tightened my grip on the envelope, turned and ran toward the river, straight into the darkness, straight into whatever truth my father had been hiding. Whatever was coming next would change everything. The city felt different at night. Quieter, colder, like it was holding its breath. I ran through half-lit streets, weaving between closed shops and flickering lamps, my lungs burning. Every few seconds I turned to look behind me, terrified I'd see the man in the black cap gaining on me. But he was gone. The river wasn't far, but every shadow felt like a threat. When I finally reached the old bridge, I stopped under the weak orange glow of a broken streetlight. Water rushed below, dark and unforgiving. I stood there alone, gripping the envelope in my jacket, heart beating so hard I felt dizzy. Who had called me? Why here? Why now? For a few minutes nothing happened. Until footsteps approached. I spun around, ready to run. But the person who emerged from the shadows wasn't the man who chased me. It was the same older man from the park. The one who had given me the envelope. Only now his calm, gentle demeanor was gone. His face was tight, eyes scanning the area like he expected snipers on the rooftops. "You came," he said, lowering his hood. What choice did I have? I shot back, breathless. Who is following me? Why does my father have? I swallowed hard. That kind of money? What is going on? He stepped closer. "First, we need to get you somewhere safe." "No," I stepped back. "You explain everything right here." He studied me for a long moment, measured, calculating, then nodded. "Fine. But listen carefully. What I tell you now, you can't ever repeat." I crossed my arms, trying to look braver than I felt. "I'm listening." He took a deep breath. "Your father wasn't the man you think he was." My stomach twisted. What does that mean? He wasn't just a businessman. He worked with a private intelligence group off the books. Completely untraceable. They were hired to fix the problems that governments couldn't afford to admit existed. My pulse spiked. You mean he was a spy? Something like that. But more dangerous. More secret. The man glanced around before leaning closer. The money on that card isn't a savings account. It's a contingency fund. A war chest. And if the bank flagged it? He exhaled sharply. It means someone else got notified too. Who? I whispered. People your father betrayed. A cold wave rolled over me.